haven't changed, had much to say. But man, I still
Welcome to the Young Turks today, everybody. I don't know if you know this. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. How you doing? I'm going to go this way, Jesus. Here you go. Okay. Hey, there you go. I'm centered. Or as Ice Cube would say, I'm Geronimo. I'm Hannibal. I'm a bull in Barcelona. Oh, you know, Anna teased me. She says we might get Ice Cube on the show. Oh, that would instantly overtake President Jimmy Carter as the coolest guest we've had on the program. Oh, come on. How awesome would that be? All right. So, but I don't want to get you too excited. That's, you know, with all these celebrity types, it's always a long shot. All right. So, listen, major news today, of course, we got the car bombing in New York. We've got the offshore drilling mess, Obama's response to it. We got the White House Correspondents' Dinner. We got porn by Republicans. We got just about everything you can imagine on today's show. Let's hope we can squeeze most of it in. So, well, I'm going to start with what I think is the most important topic. I could be wrong about that because that oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico is disastrous. But nonetheless, we have a bill that might, or at least an amendment. We have an amendment that might actually prove useful and helpful and do real financial reform. And that is an amendment to the finance reform bill in the Senate right now that says that we can audit the Fed. That would be fantastic. That already passed the House with overwhelming bipartisan support. And in the Senate, it stands a very good chance. Bernie Sanders introduced it. He's probably the single most progressive senator we have in the country. But it has a ton of Republican co-sponsors. And in fact, this bill came up last year, and it got 59 votes. But of course, the way the Senate is, they decided that, no, that's not good enough. Of course, with the filibusters, et cetera, it needed to get to 60. Now, the good news is, hey, there's 8 senators who voted no last time in the Senate, now saying that they're co-sponsors of the bill. Well, that would appear to be 67 senators that could crush any kind of opposition. So it looks like, hey, excellent news. We'll finally audit the Fed and figure out what the hell's going on with their books and what they're doing with money that they're printing on our behalf. As Alan Grayson points out, when he asked the Fed point blank in the House, hey, what did you do with $500 billion that you gave away to the banks? Who did you give it to? And how did you give it to them? They said, no, sorry, we're not going to tell you. He's like, what do you mean you're not going to tell us? You're printing the money that's U.S. dollars, and then you're not telling us which banks you're giving it to? That's mental. So that's why Republicans, Democrats joined and passed easily in the House. Now, so why am I even having this conversation? Well, I'll just tell you tomorrow when it comes up that it passed, right? As you might suspect, it's not that easy. Well, it turns out it does have some particularly strong opponents. Obviously, the Fed is very much opposed to anyone looking at what they're doing, which is, I can't emphasize enough how crazy that is. Okay. B, of course, Wall Street, who gets all that money from the Fed, hates this and is lobbying like crazy to kill it. C, you have the corporatist senators on both sides. I mean, when you look at the people who voted no last time on this bill and who have not switched over, there are who's who of corporatists in the Democratic and Republican parties. Okay, just every guy that loves taking corporate money is on that list. Okay, it's a good telling list for you to look at and go, okay, those guys will almost always vote with corporate America or multinational corporations, no matter what the interests of the American people are. Okay, so, but still, that doesn't seem like it's enough, right? So where's the real opposition to this coming from? The White House. There are 2 guys that are looking to block this and are acting with fervor. The twin towers of the establishment, or maybe the wonder twins of the establishment, Rahm Emanuel and Tim Geithner, in the form of corporatism, in the form of the establishment. Or we can go in another direction, in the form of Washington, in the form of Wall Street. Wonder twin powers activate. So Tim Geithner's always been against it. Of course, he was the head of the New York Fed, and he doesn't want anybody looking into anything he did or anybody else on the Fed did. Remember, the New York Fed is the one that gave away all that money through AIG to the banks. Okay, so he doesn't want people looking into his past mess. And now there are reports, including confirmed by Senator Sanders, that the number one guy lobbying against this is Rahm Emanuel, the chief of staff for Barack Obama, saying, no, we must absolutely protect the Fed and Wall Street. We cannot have them knowing where the American people's money went. How's that for change? You can't believe it. There's no way you're going to get that change that you want, even though in this rare case, we appear to have overwhelming bipartisanship in the Senate. Now, if they lose that fight, the White House loses that fight, the White House who's trying to prevent change and hope and accountability and transparency, if they lose and we accidentally get change, sorry, Obama, through the Senate and the House, well, then Obama's going to have a very interesting decision to make. Is he going to veto financial reform to protect the Fed and Wall Street? Well, if he does that, then it's game over. There's no way that anybody in the country can pretend that Obama's for actual change. You can say, hey, look, he's trying to do the right thing with the gradualist and the incrementalist, and eventually 28 years from now, or maybe 213 years from now, we're going to get to that change that he promised. But if he says, no, we have the change, the Republicans even voted for it, and now we're going to kill it, hell no. Hell no, that's not change. It's the exact opposite. It's protecting the establishment. And by the way, if more Republicans vote for this than Democrats, then give the credit to the Republicans. Then on this particular issue, they'll be dead right. So let's see how that vote comes out tomorrow. Very, very interesting. All right, now, speaking of the Fed and why they might not want people to find out what's going on there. Well, it turns out during this gigantic housing bubble, they had meetings about it in 2004. And at the time, of course, Alan Greenspan is the head of the Fed. And there are warnings from everybody. Remember how they said, oh, nobody could have known there's a housing bubble. Boy, that totally took us by surprise. Back in 2004, you got the Federal Reserve Bank president from Atlanta, Jack Gein, who's warning very specifically, look, we got housing prices out of control here, and we're feeding into it. Here, I'll give you a quick quote on it. He said, the substantial run-up in house prices, which we have followed in Florida and also seen the populous Northeast and West Coast of the United States, may be at least partially attributable to the unusually low mortgage rates influenced by our very accommodative policy. He's saying, look, it's all over the country. It's because you get really low rates that you're getting this bubble. Why do you have low rates? Because of our policy that accommodates it. How much clearer did he have to be, right? So that's his concerns. Then you go to the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston head Kathy Minahan, and she says, look, in New England, housing prices are out of control, and it's affecting the rest of the economy. A bubble is building. And then Richmond Federal Reserve Bank President Jeff Lacker is concerned. Even Tim Geithner, at the time, the head of the New York Fed, voices some concern, hey, maybe our policies are leading to this bubble. And what do we find out about that? Not a damn thing. Why? Because the Fed records are secret for at least 5 years. We just found out because these are the records from 2004, okay? And so what's their excuse for keeping them secret and private? You can't possibly understand the genius of the Fed, and you rabble-rousers, you peasants, are going to get in our way of our brilliant policy. Well, I'm not making that up. Look at Alan Greenspan's quotes that we now find out through the notes of those meetings. Here's what Greenspan said at the time. We run the risk by laying out the pros and cons of a particular argument of inducing people to join in on the debate. Heaven forfend, we wouldn't want that. And he continues, and in this regard, it is possible to lose control of a process that only we fully understand. See, Alan Greenspan's got it on lockdown. He's the only one that understands. And so he can't let anybody else into the debate that would be inclusive. And they would come in with their stupid opinions when the brilliant people at the Fed have got it figured out that the housing bubble is not a problem. Now, they didn't tell us about any of these concerns. Instead, they released brief notes of the meeting. And in brief notes, they said, there was some discussion of the housing market being enthusiastic, but overall, we decided that it wasn't a big deal, so move along, okay? Now, you think that's not good enough? All right, here's one more quote from Alan Greenspan that is right here. He says, I'm a little concerned about other people getting into the debate when they know far less than we do. Oh, is that right, Alan? How much did you wind up knowing? How did all that knowledge work out for you? Oh, right, you built a gigantic housing bubble. And then you created unregulated, enormous bets on that bubble that blew up and nearly destroyed the world economy. I'm sorry for intruding into your brilliant policymaking. I wouldn't want to inject other ideas into this process. At best that you protect your Wall Street friends while they continue to make billions in their bonuses and then leave the mess in our hands. This is exactly why you have to audit the Fed. They don't know what the hell they're doing other than to protect their banker friends, and they think that they're so goddamn wise that anyone else even having an opinion is unbearable and must be kept out. Alan Greenspan, in hindsight, and perhaps for some of you while it was happening, and honestly, if you asked me in 2004 if Alan Greenspan was a disaster, I probably would have thought, you're crazy. Disaster? No, I wouldn't say that. Well, I would have been wrong. You would have been right. And in hindsight, it is absolutely clear. Alan Greenspan was a grotesque disaster at the Fed. Hideous. Didn't know what he was doing. And I mean, he came in front of Waxman in the House and admitted it. He said, yeah, my worldview seemed to have a kind of a flaw in it. Oh, really? You don't say, Alan? Huh. Thanks for letting us know that a little too late. Then he just wrote a huge policy paper a couple of weeks ago saying, did I say fundamental flaw? Did I say that I was totally wrong about my entire philosophy and my entire life? No, I meant I was totally right. My bad. I'm switching everything again and saying, yeah, trust the free market. Everything will be great. We're not against the free market, by the way. I want everybody to understand that. In order for the free market to work, you need to have rules and regulations, and you need to be accountable and transparent. It's the people's money. It's not Alan Greenspan's money. It's not Ben Bernanke's money. How dare they tell us that, no, we can't see where they're printing the money and which banks they're giving it to? It's an insane argument. And I hope the Republicans and the Democrats tear that argument apart tomorrow. And I hope the Barack Obama's administration loses in disgrace over that issue. Man, I'm so mad at them. I mean, come on, guys. All of you that are watching, didn't we try so hard to get Obama elected so we wouldn't have to put up with this crap? Oh, because we were told the Republicans, no, they're the ones that are, against change and will protect the bankers. And that turned out to be true 98% of the time, although not in this case, okay? But Obama was supposed to be on our side. Now he's sending out Geithner and Emanuel to say, oh, no. Whatever you do, job one is protect the Wall Street's ass. Meanwhile, Wall Street's out there saying, oh, no, I'm going to give all my money to the Republicans. You're not doing a good enough job of covering my ass. It's sickening. All right, okay, if you think that's not bad enough, here you go. Here comes Larry Summers, the number 2 guy in the Obama administration, the economic genius, we're told, head of his Council of Economic Advisors, saying at the end of last week, oh, no, big banks are great. I'm not kidding. I'm not making it up. He said, no, breaking up the big banks and the smaller banks would lead to more instability. See, the big banks, they have a diversified portfolio, and that's what keeps them so stable. Are you kidding me? Is that a joke? How stable did they look in 2008? No, if one of them goes down, they're all interconnected and they're all so large, they bring down the whole economy with them. A child looking at this would know that. And Larry Summers, a frickin' economic genius, can't figure that out? Simon Johnson wrote an article calling him out on it, saying, look, show me one piece of evidence. Because Larry Summers painted it as indisputable. Him and his Wall Street friends and his friends at the Fed got together over tea and crumpets, and they said, oh, of course it's indisputable. We should be as large as possible. And he said, oh, really, indisputable. Show me one research study that says that bigger banks lead to more stability rather than less stability. Oh, that's right. You can't show me one because you made it up. All right, if you think that's not bad enough, we're going to keep on going. FDIC head, Sheila Bair, who's supposed to be one of the good guys, who warned us about these derivatives and how they were going to destroy the economy. She was entirely right. Now that she's part of this administration, Hey, look at that. Sheila's a team player now. She says, let the banks keep the derivatives. Sometimes I get discouraged. Now, look, you could make an argument for this. Here's how you make the argument. It doesn't matter who has the derivatives. They're so gigantic that if they blow up, the whole economy blows up anyway, right? And I hear that argument. And the reason she wants the banks to keep it is because then it would be under her supervision at the FDIC. She's worried it goes under somebody else's supervision, and then nobody supervises. I understand that. So this argument is not nearly as bad as Summers, Geithner, or Rahm Emanuel's arguments. But still, it's worrisome that the person who was, put into the administration because she's one of the few people who got it right is now saying, don't worry, let the gigantic banks keep their derivative positions. Look, you know what's a great book to read on this? The Big Short by Michael Lewis. Fan-frickin-tastic book on it, okay? And if you read the book, all this is a joke, man. I mean, it supports everything I thought before I read the book. And he did a great job of breaking it apart. And you see that they invented these derivatives bets out of whole cloth. And they're totally run amok. They're totally gigantic, and that's how they make so much money. And they're obviously flawed. They're obviously going to destroy us. And now we have even Sheila Bair making the argument that those giant banks should keep their giant derivatives bets, when the reality is we should ban them. The ones that are synthetic collateralized debt obligations, CDOs, or naked credit default swaps, don't get caught up in the letters and the names. Those are just bets. And it's crazy that we let the bankers make them, because when they lose, they don't lose, we lose. You know who's a sucker that took all their bets, especially Goldman Sachs' bets? In fact, everybody's bets in the beginning. You know who they are? You all know it. AIG. Guess who paid AIG's bills for all those sucker bets? That's right, the American taxpayer, so far, to the tune of $182 billion. How stupid are we? And then Tim Geithner tells me, no, don't look into what I'm doing. I got this thing figured out. No, you don't. You're a tool and a fool. Now, just when you get discouraged on the Democratic side, and you think, well, it can't get any worse than that, well, you would be wrong. The Republican side, again, with the notable exception of how the vote looks like on auditing the Fed in the House and the Senate, and I give them credit where credit is due, okay? With that notable exception, the Republican side is far worse. How so? So Frank Luntz is the guy who came up with all the memos, right? He's the one that tells you, oh, no, pretend that the financial reform is a giant bailout of the banks, when you know to be the exact opposite, right? So he wrote an article in Huffington Post explaining his point of view. He says, now, look, he said, I love this quote, look, those who are on the side of significant financial reform are fighting on the side of the angels and with broad public support. So he wants financial reform, he really does, even though he's the top GOP strategist. That gives them all their talking points. But he's about to tell you, even though he really wants it, no, we actually shouldn't have it at all. There is no, he has no alternative whatsoever proposed in any of this, right? So he wants no reform. He certainly doesn't want Obama's reform. He doesn't want the Senate or the House version. He says they want something done to punish the perpetrators of the financial meltdown, meaning the American public and the senators, etc., but not at the expense of their own checking accounts. No, the American people don't want that. Or economic freedom. See, Frank Luntz isn't trying to protect Wall Street. He's protecting American economic freedom. Oh, thank you so much. And the check accounts, he claims, of the American people. Now, here's the one. So there's so many things in here that drove me crazy. But let me summarize it for you. First, here's a classic example of Propaganda 101. He says, and in this case, every account holder will be forced to pay higher fees on their checking account and savings account. That's you, my friendly reader. Can you say checkbook tax? He literally wrote this. And I can, and I think lots of candidates will say it come November. Yeah, they'll say it because you wrote it in a memo to them to say it. He wants them to say checkbook tax. Now, why? Why? This is the great twist. He says, yeah. They're going to say that they're taxing or regulating the banks, etc. But, quote, since when have corporations ever paid taxes, fees, or penalties? Employees end up paying in the form of lower salaries and benefits. Customers end up paying in the form of higher costs. So under Frank Luntz's logic, you can never tax or fine or regulate the banks because then they would pass it on to their customers and their employees. And you don't want that. That would be a checkbook tax. You would be anti-employee. So never, ever regulate them. Look, you know, from time to time you get a question of whether somebody is actually genuinely believes the nonsense that they spout, or if they think you're a sucker and a fool and they're using you. Well, in Frank Luntz's case, it's absolutely clear. He thinks you're a sucker and a fool. He knows this is garbage. He knows that he doesn't mean any of this. He says he wants financial reform. He proposed none of it. He fights all of it. And he pretends, no, I'm not protecting the bankers, even though that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm pretending to protect your checkbook. Because if you dare hurt my banker friends, they would obviously hurt you in return. That's his brilliant argument. These are the choices we have in America. The Rahm Emanuels and the Tim Geithners or the Frank Luntzes. What choice do we have? Here's more Propaganda 101. This reform, it keeps too big to fail guarantees in place for another generation of financial services companies. Lie, nonsense, and right out of his earlier textbook. Here's another one. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's not what you say, it's what people hear. That's Luntz's memo for his whole life. Say it again and again and again. So that's why McConnell goes and gives a speech where he literally repeated every line. And he says, look, it's not what the reality is, it's what people hear. And if you tell them checkbook tax, they won't hear financial reform, they'll hear that they're being taxed. I mean, the guy's admitting it in his own article. And then I love this piece here. But most average Americans, the ones who bailed Wall Street out in the first place, cannot afford lobbyists and won't be exempted from the legislation. He's saying, look, the hedge funds, the private equity guys, they're all going to get their exemptions, and different industries. Yes, I'm worried about those. Who's fighting for those exemptions? Republicans, right? He doesn't mention that, right? So then he turns around and says, they're going to get their exemptions, but you won't be exempted. You'll have to suffer the consequences of this bill. He was talking about derivatives regulation. Do you do any derivatives regulation? Why would you need to be exempted? I mean, you want to talk about a pathetic excuse for an argument? As if like, well, you know what, I was going to go down to the local grocery store and do some derivatives trading. I was going to get myself a synthetic CDO and then a naked CDS. But you know what, I guess this financial reform affects me. That's what Frank Luntz told me. And so since they won't let me do it, I guess they it doesn't make any sense. They should let me do it, and hence they should let Bank of America and Citibank do it too. None of it makes a bit of sense. And then finally, and this leads to another article written today, he said, let me give you his argument in relationship to healthcare reform so you know exactly what game is being played. Instead, voters have been inundated with information such as the recent HHS memo that confirmed what opponents of the legislation were saying regarding healthcare reform. The bill would not reduce spending or the deficit after all. Voters will soon find out that the financial reform bill won't end bailouts, it will enshrine them into law. You get that great piece of propaganda and trickery there? He says, look, first, what they did with healthcare reform is they watered it down, the Republicans did. They got 150 amendments, almost all of them in favor of corporate America. And then they turned around and said, oh, you see that? It doesn't control costs. Yeah, it's so weak. Oh, it deals with lobbyists. And now he's turning around and saying, you see, we told you they made deals with lobbyists. We told you that health care reform wouldn't control costs. And they're going to do the same thing with financial reform. Meanwhile, the same Republicans that he gave marching orders are today, again with the notable exception of the Fed audit, are going out and trying to water down reform so they could turn around and afterwards say, see, it didn't do it. It didn't give you the real reform, and that's why you should vote against Democrats and always vote for Republicans. In fact, his closing line is, Americans want to change the direction of their government, and they will keep replacing incumbents until they get it right. In other words, don't worry about what the Republican position is. Don't worry that we're not proposing financial reform and that I never even mentioned what my alternative is in the article. Just vote out the Democrats. Yeah, that's genius. But look, if you're asking me for, hey, what should we do? We got a long-term fight ahead of us. We really do. And there's no way around it. We have to go and fundamentally change the system. We need a political revolution in this country. And we need, to change the way the system works. Otherwise, or unfortunately, a majority of the Democrats and Republicans, well, the entirety of the Republicans and the majority of the Democrats we elect will wind up becoming corporatists and be part of this system. We have to attack campaign finance reform. We have to push for legislation like I talked about in the beginning of this segment, which is to audit the Fed. And we have to keep on pushing until we win. And it won't be anytime soon, but we got to keep fighting because right now, these guys don't represent us. And it's sickening to watch them in action. Young Turks.
The #1 progressive talk show, don't you forget it. Right.
Welcome to Young Turks. I am Cenk Uygur. J.R. Jackson's producing, Jesus Godoy is directing. And I'm in a bit of a rage today over the White House trying to block any kind of audit of the Fed. They want to keep it secret and hidden so we don't know where our money's going. I'm also fascinated and slightly enraged, although not that surprised, by Fox News' reaction to the oil spill. Can you guess who they're going to blame? Well, first clue is anyone but the companies that actually did it. Okay, so that'll be coming up in just a little bit. But I wanted to lighten up the mood today, and there is ample opportunity to do that because the president was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, of course, over the weekend on Saturday, and he killed. Credit where credit is due. This is edited by JR from his whole presentation, and I got to tell you, it was funny. Let's watch.
I wasn't sure that I should actually come tonight. Biden talked me into it. He leaned over and he said, Mr. President, this is no ordinary dinner. This is a big meal. Lots of ups, lots of downs, except for my approval ratings, which have just gone down. But that's politics. It doesn't bother me. Besides, I happen to know that my approval ratings are still very high in the country of my birth. Though I am glad that the only person whose ratings fell more than mine last year is here tonight. Great to see you, Jay. I'm also glad that I'm speaking first, because we've all seen what happens when somebody takes the time slot after Leno's. By the way, all of the jokes here tonight are brought to you by our friends at Goldman Sachs. So you don't have to worry. They make money whether you laugh or not. I saw Michael Steele backstage when we were taking pictures, a.k.a. Notorious GOP. Michael, who knows what truly plagues America today, taxation without representing. My brother. I did a similar routine last year, but it always works. Odds are that the Salahis are here. There haven't been people that were more unwelcome at a party since Charlie Crist. Unfortunately, John McCain couldn't make it. Recently claimed that he had never identified himself as a maverick. And we all know what happens in Arizona when you don't have ID. Adios, amigos. You might have heard we passed a health care bill. And was that Roger Ailes applauding out there? Some Republicans have suggested that the bill contains a few secret provisions. This next provision is called the Jersey Shore Up. It reads, the following individuals shall be excluded from the indoor tanning tax within this bill. Snooki, JWoww, The Situation, and House Minority Leader John Boehner. Now, look, obviously I've learned this year politics can be a tough business, but there are times where you just can't help but laugh. You know what really tickles me? Eric Massa. Apparently, Massa claimed that Rahm came up to him one day in the House locker room, stark naked, started screaming obscenities at him. To which I say, welcome to my world.
No, I got to tell you, man, I'm a tough crowd. I was there to be like, oh, yeah, he did great. Schwang, wang, wang. But credit where credit is due. That stuff was funny, man. That was some excellent writing. I want to find out who wrote the jokes. That was great stuff. And credit to Obama, delivered it nicely. All right. Now, look, it's easy to do the Steele jokes and the John Boehner jokes. He's done that tanning joke before on John Boehner. Not the Jersey Shore one, but another one. But look, those are ripe targets. What are you going to do, not hit him? I think you hit him again and again and again. So nicely done. Apparently, Jay Leno bombed. We're going to do that in the postgame for you guys. We'll share that with you because not enough time in the regular show today. And then did you catch the joke on the Salahis? They're the ones that broke into the White House. And I don't know why that was the one joke that was like, and he said, nobody's been welcome at a party or this unwelcome, says Charlie Crist. Nobody's like, oh. That's like the most reasonable joke I've ever heard. Anyway, great writing on that. All right, now let's get on to serious issues. So we have this gigantic spill that's only gotten worse and worse in the Gulf of Mexico. BP is, of course, the company that is ultimately responsible. In fact, they say so, and they say they're going to pay the bills. They're going to pay for, of course, containing it, cleaning it. Now, there's some dispute as to how much they're going to compensate people who've lost business over it, including, obviously, the fishing industry in the area, but perhaps also the tourism industry in the area. And right now, Democrats are working on a bill to expand how much they would have to put in from comically low $75 million to perhaps $10 billion. So that seems to be a bill that I would certainly be in favor of, because it's not right to take their responsibility, their fault, and then cause economic harm to others in the area. Why should we pay their bills, and why should those people that are hurting those industries in that area pay their bills? Now, there is a decent question as to who should be, whether it's BP or Transocean that was running the actual operation for BP, or Halliburton, who apparently was the people who was doing the cementing work, and right now the leading theory is that they're the ones who screwed up, and that's what caused the explosion in the first place. Now, that should be figured out in court, and I guarantee you that it will. It'll go to court, everybody will sue one another, and then we'll see how it comes out. Now, right now, meanwhile, fishing, for example, has been closed in 6,800 square miles in that area. So the fishing industry is absolutely devastated there. And it only promises to get worse. Right now, they say at least 2.6 million gallons of oil has spilled into the Gulf of Mexico, an extra 200,000 a day. And on top of that, it looks like right now, according to the press reports, at best case scenario, BP has a possible fix that they could implement in 6 to 8 days. That would be, 200,000 gallons going out there every single day as they're trying to fix it. But they think that probably will not work, and that they'll have to go to the second backup plan, which would take 3 months. And when they ask BP how much oil is in that reserve, so we can begin to find out how much is going to leak. Remember, the worst accident ever was 11 million gallons spilled by Exxon Valdez. Now, last week they were saying 4.2 million. They actually lowered it now, and everybody's guessing to 2.6 million, but rising in 3 months. If there's more than 10 million gallons of oil down there, they'll way past Exxon Valdez. And BP right now says, well, there could be 10, 20, 30 million gallons down there. We're not really sure. And God knows how long it'll take before they fix it so that they can stop that leak. Now, in the last 3 days, Jesus, you got this little demonstration. in the last 3 days, the size of the spill has grown 3 times. So it's getting exponentially worse, and it's coming soon coming on shore. So right now, as Jesus is grabbing that, so those of you viewing the show can see it, we had Democratic Congressman Gene Taylor go and visit the site. He came out looking like an absolute fool. He said, at the moment, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Really? How much worse could it get? And he said, what I want people to know is this isn't Katrina, this is not Armageddon. I did this for the Coast Guard many years ago. Yeah, it's bad, and it's terrible, and there's a spill out there. But I would remind people that the oil is 20 miles from any marsh. And there you see the expansion over the last several days as it grew to 3 times its size. And the reality is, of course, it has already reached the coast, and there are local reports saying that people are having trouble breathing, and if you're feeling nauseous, make sure you go inside and don't breathe the air too much. Don't stand outside too much. But don't worry, Congressman Taylor says everything's going to be fine. In fact, here comes the craziest part of what he said. He said, it looks a little like chocolate milk. It'll probably break up naturally. Now, come on. So as soon as I read that, I was like, all right, who is paying Gene Taylor's bills? Guaranteed it's businesses connected to the energy industry. If Representative Gene Taylor, who's a Democrat from Mississippi, isn't taking a tremendous amount of money from the oil industry and the people who caused this mess, I would be shocked. What kind of ignorance is it to go out there and say, it's not that bad, it's like chocolate milk, it'll break up naturally. It's nowhere near true. It's not even remotely related to the facts. It's not going to break up naturally. It's gotten 3 times bigger in just the last couple of days. Our politicians don't work for us. They work for whoever pays them. Look, I don't know who, because this is the first day that we've heard about Gene Taylor. I don't know where he gets his campaign money from. I hope that somebody does an investigation on it. Do we still have reporters in this country, journalists in this country? Please do an investigation on it. My guess is I'll come back on here and tell you in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, yes, in fact, Gene Taylor takes exactly those kind of corporation money, and that's exactly why he said something so nonsensical today. We'll see. We'll see what happens, okay? Now, if you think all of this is silly, wait till we get a load of 2 things. One is Fox News, and the other one is Obama's bungling of this, if you ask me, okay? Now, when I say bungling, I don't mean the disaster itself. I mean how he handled the offshore drilling in the first place and how he got the blame stuck on him. Okay, but let's start at the beginning. Fox News has decided that this massive oil spill is not the fault of the companies that caused it, seemingly. No, of course not. It's Obama's fault, and it's just about everybody else's fault. First, Chris Wallace is going to compare it to Katrina, and he's going to ask Napolitano and Salazar, the Homeland Security Chief and the Interior Secretary Chief for Obama, why it's Obama's fault. Let's go to clip number 8.
A number of Louisiana officials are saying that the Obama administration was slow to respond to this crisis, and I want to review the timeline of what's happened here. On April 20th, the explosion of the drilling platform. For days, BP and the Coast Guard say there's no leak. On April 24th, we're told it's leaking 1,000 barrels a day. On April 28th, the estimate is raised to 5,000 barrels a day. It's not until April 29th, 9 days after the accident, that the president makes his first statement about what's now called an incident of national significance. Secretary Napolitano, should the administration have responded faster?
Oh, the administration responded all hands on deck from day one. What happened is the situation itself evolved. The situation evolved from an explosion and a search and rescue mission to several days later, the actual sinking of the rig. At that point in time, the oil was being burned off on the surface. The next phase was that the oil began to spread and was not all being burned off on the surface. And then we had assets in place already pre-deployed, more than 70 vessels, hundreds of thousands of feet of boom. The command center, the integrated command center, the commandant referred to, was already stood up with the states involved from day one, I might say.
You know, some critics are saying this could be Obama's Katrina.
If I may, just on that point, from day one, the president has been involved and informed and has been directing us to do everything that we can and not to spare any effort. Your timeline that you had up there, frankly, you can go back and you can put April 22nd on there, where we are stepping on the neck of BP to do everything it can do because it's its responsibility. A letter from them saying what their resources were and how they were moving forward to implement the vast oil spill response plan. So from day one, we've been on top of this every minute, 24 hours a day, trying to get the situation.
Yeah, now look, I think it's a mixed bag. I think if you ask me, did they react slowly? Yes. And look, here's a standard I always use. Put the shoe on the other foot, right? If it was Bush who waited around all this time to react, would we have criticized him? Of course we would have, right? Now, that's one thing. So I think Chris Wallace asking that question in the beginning is perfectly legitimate, okay? Now, Fox's overall plan to paint this as Obama's Katrina, well, that's a different story. First of all, I don't know if you know this, thousands of people died during Hurricane Katrina. And second of all, an entire American city was underwater. It's not like, hey, I can't tell what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico. Is it 1,000 barrels that's leaking into the water where we can't see? Is it 5,000 barrels? We don't really know. Is BP doing the right thing, the wrong thing? No, it was evident from day one. Hey, look at that. An entire city is underwater. So is it a fair comparison? Of course not, right? But here's where it starts to get silly. Now, Fox News has compared Obama's handling of the oil spill to Hurricane Katrina. They've started that ball rolling. Now they're going to get outright weird. We're going to go to Fox and Friends, clip number 9, and they've got conspiracy theories, and they're going to blame everyone but the actual companies who caused the disaster. Let's watch.
But Dana, isn't it different here because you actually have somebody to blame as opposed to Hurricane Katrina? Who are you going to blame? God? I mean, so here you could blame BP, and the president did so last night.
Well, right, and he called him out, and we'll see. Ultimately, I do think that the BP executive, they should say, we'll take the responsibility that is ours. What we're focused on right now is getting it cleaned up. But we don't know what happened, and what'll be interesting to me, and I'm not trying to introduce a conspiracy theory, but was this deliberate? You have to wonder.
Sabotage?
Yeah, there was sabotage involved, and this company doesn't know that. That's not important at the moment.
Right. Because they leased this platform. They didn't make this platform. They leased this platform, so maybe they didn't know what they were getting.
Eric, what do you make of these people who have suggested, there's a possibility this could be sabotage?
Well, sabotage, in fact, the CEO of BP says, we're not sure exactly how this happened. We don't know, so you can't go ahead and speculate on that. The question is, and I saw Dana Perino earlier on the show saying, why the delay in the response? You guys are right pointing out 9 days before it was even addressed, 12 days before he made a formal comment. The question is, did they let this thing leak? I mean, BP said 1,000 barrels a day went to 5,000. Did they let it leak a little bit and say, boy, I don't know. I mean, the conspiracy theorists would say maybe they let it leak for a while and then they addressed the issue.
That would be
Not that it would have been different.
That would make a humongous accusation.
It would be a humongous accusation, and probably the net result would be no different. But if they're going to try and pull drilling, that may be the way.
Well, that's great. First, they set up the softball on BP. Hey, should it be BP that's responsible since they're the ones who did it? And Dana Perino knocks it out of the park. Says, of course not. It's probably sabotage. A multinational corporation could never be responsible. We're on Fox News here. So, sabotage by who? Where the hell did they get that from? I haven't read that in a single news report as even a remote possibility. They pulled it out of their ass. Why? Don't look at BP. Don't look at Halliburton, who did the cementing. Don't look at Transocean. No, it was probably a terrorist or something. Can we blame a terrorist? Right? All right, so that's how they start out, number one. Number two, they allude to the earlier Fox News thing about, it's a delay in response. Obama didn't respond in time. Government's fault, Obama's fault, his Katrina. Point number 3, he let it leak. Who let it leak? Why did they let it leak? Okay, I guess what they're saying is, they wanted a big environmental disaster so they can complain about environmental disasters. That's why Obama said, hey, make sure you guys at BP and Halliburton that you don't fix the mess you started because you'll be in the tank for billions of dollars here. And BP was like, yeah, we don't mind paying the billions of dollars. Well, yes, Mr. President, we'll let it leak. Only in the absolutely insane world of Fox News is that even considered by anyone. And by the way, how much sense would that make since Obama is in favor of offshore drilling? Now he's in a world of trouble because he just came out a little while ago and said that he wanted to do more offshore drilling. So why would he let it leak so that he could do less offshore drilling? How does that make any sense? But it doesn't have to make sense. It's Fox News. Just whatever you do, do not ever blame a multinational corporation. They must be protected at all costs. All right, I got more on this. In fact, I got to talk about how Obama screwed this up to high heaven. Not in terms of the leak, but in terms of his offshore drilling plan, which is now hung around his neck. God, what a dumb move that was. All right, let's come back and talk about that. Young Turks.
You make me wanna say.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you. Who doesn't love those guys?
That was a great interview. I loved it.
Yep. Later we have more from London. You know, they're from Yorkshire in Great Britain. But we have our Facebook comment of the day is from. It's from Georgia. The Great Britain one I'm going to do later. Never mind. Okay. But you know what? In the post game, I'm going to do a lot of videos, including Jay Leno bombing at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So that should be fun for everybody. And we're going to finish up that Norway conversation because I know you ain't done with me yet.
I'm not done. No, not at all.
All right. So she's going to get back at me. All right. But we still have lesbians to go on this program. So we got to go.
We do have lesbians?
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. That's right. We do. Okay.
Don't worry. Fret not. Always lesbians on the program.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I did learn something from Howard Stern. Okay. It was a little later.
Okay. Let's start with O'Casey's Pub in Midtown Manhattan. O'Casey's is doing something very unique. They are turning their second story into an unemployment center where Irish immigrants can go and get advice and possibly a new job in the United States.
Top of the morning to you, O'Casey. I really like this program.
And then they can walk downstairs and drink.
Get a bit of a pint.
A bit of a pint.
All right. My incredibly goofy Irish accent aside, to me, this makes all the sense in the world. Where would unemployed Irish people go? Pub. Okay. Where are you going to help them? Pub. Makes perfect sense. And I don't know if anybody's got an issue with, like, they're only helping Irish people, but whatever. I mean, people help within their ethnicities all the time, right? There's no problem in my mind with that. A friend of mine is Korean, and they had this, like, really great program that it was totally informal that they would do for the fellow Koreans that came in. And I know different communities do this with different places. Like, for example, for them it was 7-Elevens, okay? That's the way it happened to be. And they knew how to buy a 7-Eleven. They knew how to make money off that, right? And so they would, when they came in that was family or a friend of a friend or someone within the network was also Korean, the rest of the guys would put up seed money for them to buy the 7-Eleven franchise in that area, okay? And then they would repay the other guys.
Was it mob-like?
No, not at all, not in the least bit. But that's helping your own community in a very positive way, right?
Right.
And so I think that makes a ton of sense. And if, you got unemployed Irish guys in New York and somebody who's a local pub owner wants to help them out while they grab a drink, it's only the most logical thing I've ever heard in my life.
Would you do it for your fellow Turkish brothers?
No. Okay, but I'm a bad guy, and you shouldn't be a bad guy like me. You should be a good guy. Okay, go.
Well, if this is going to be an official unemployment office upstairs, you can't cut out everyone else, can you? I mean, the whole thing about the Korean 7-Eleven thing, is that what you just told the story of? The Korean 7-Eleven thing, that's not really an official business. Like, they bring in people from friends and family and friends of friends and family of family. But when you open up a second level on your business and your establishment and someone, who knows what, a British guy walks in and go, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
It's a British. I don't think so, no.
We don't like your accent. Get the fuck out of here.
Not welcome.
Especially since this has been publicized and everything. So
yeah, but look, you bring up a good point, and I honestly don't know the answer to it because I don't know if it gets any government money or anything like that. I mean, if it doesn't and it's just informal, it's nobody's business, if you ask me. They call them unemployment services, but they say they're sprouting up in a lot of ethnic enclaves in New York. There's, like, for example, the Metropolitan Council on Jewish Poverty, and they run a jobs program from their lower Manhattan offices. Is that kosher? But I assume that they've decided that all these things are kosher, and, as long as it doesn't have a malicious intent, and they probably don't exclude it. It'd just be weird if a Pakistani dude walked in to the Irish pub, was like, top of the morning, I tell you. I'd like to get a job if I could.
Except he'd have to have a Pakistani accent.
That is a very good point. Hello, am I in the wrong place? I was looking for chutney and jobs. Okay, anyway, JR, don't be a downer, okay? Let him go. Let him go. Let him drink, let him try to get a job. Although, probably not the best way to get a job. You'd want to be sober for the interview, but hopefully they'll figure that out. And I'm partial to the Irish, so I'm a little biased. I love their funerals. That's how a funeral should be. You got to get wasted, have some fun, appreciate life. God bless. Should I say it one more time? Top of the morning, tell you. Okay, anyway, sorry. Let's go.
All right. Virginia's state's official seal exposes too much booby.
Obviously.
So Virginia's Attorney General, Ken Cuccinelli, wants to cover the lady's breast with an armored breastplate. Now, of course, the seal shows Virtus, the goddess of virtue, dressed as a warrior.
Yes, and her foot is resting on the chest of the figure of tyranny who's lying on the ground. That seems like a good message, but it's obscured by her left breast, mercilessly teasing us. I mean, look at that breast. Wow, virtuous. How you do it? Because I don't know anybody in Virginia who hasn't looked at the seal and been enormously aroused. So obviously this is an issue that the Republicans have to tackle. The breast must be covered. So Cuccinelli's idea, and the dude's name is Cuccinelli. Yeah, I haven't said a word. I don't know what anybody's talking about.
This guy was one of the birthers.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he questioned Obama's ability to run for president or be president because of the fact that he wasn't sure that he was born in Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, look, obviously you have to question Obama's birth and virtuous left breast. So he's decided to put an armor on it, as Anna said. Let's check out the new seal that he's proposing and sending around to his own employees. It's not official yet. He's, just saying that this is a different proposal that he has, and it's something that in the 1930s apparently he claims was around, or it's been moved around a lot since the 1930s. The seal's been changed. He's like, why can't we change it back? Mm-hmm. And so this is what I'd like to do. And it's in a long line of Republican tradition of covering up breasts.
Right.
Remember John Ashcroft, as the Justice Department Attorney General, of course, covered up the breasts of a statue behind him in a press conference. He's like, justice requires that you not see any boobanis. So this idea is spreading, apparently.
Well, before we get to their censored version, I thought the offensive part of the breast was the nipple. And obviously in that crudely, kindergarten drawing, it's just a boob, right? I don't see any nipple. I don't see a smaller circle with a little.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
like if you wear a pasty, then it's all good, right? As long as there's no nipple showing.
I tried real hard to see if there was a nipple or not. I mean,
this is such a crazy conversation. Really think about it right now. Does Cuccinelli realize how much of a clown he is? Does he? Because think about it. Okay, so this seal needs to have an armored breastplate because that breast arouses me too much. I can't concentrate every time I look at this seal. Come on, it's so ridiculous. I can't even believe. And of course, the media starts covering this story, and then he's like, can we get to the real news? No, your full behavior is the news.
Yeah, it's not like somebody forced it upon you. It was your idea. You're the one who came in and said, hey, I got a great idea. Why don't we cover up the boobs? And then when people talk about it, you're like, oh, why are you talking about it? Because you brought it up.
And you know what's crazy? Okay, he's an attorney general, right? Uh-huh. And out of all the things that he should be focusing on, he's focusing on the left breast that's exposed on this seal.
Yeah, I mean, forget the rapes that are happening in Virginia. Forget the murder that's happening in Virginia, the child molestation, the muggings, whatever, gang violence. Forget everything that's happening in Virginia. Virtuous's left nip is showing. Maybe. Okay, we can't even see the nip. I saw more of Janet Jackson's nipple. Okay, so, and then to give you a background on Cuccinelli and what a clown he is, not only is he a birther, but he has also rescinded protection for gays and lesbians at Virginia universities, so he's a class act. And he claims that homosexuals engage in behavior that is, quote, intrinsically wrong and offensive to natural law. and he thinks that, listen, these people are unnatural. And, of course, exposed left breasts are unnatural, except for the fact that God created them. And he also created homosexuals. But those are inconvenient facts that Cuccinelli will ignore. Now, look, you elect Republicans, sometimes this is what you get. Don't say we didn't warn you. Right?
What happens to Cuccinelli if he goes to the Louvre? And, he sees...
Oh, he's going to flip the fuck out.
Like, he has to go to the corner and work on himself.
Yeah, he's like, oh, my God, all these nipples! Oh, I'm so aroused! I can't do this! Oh, my God. All right, I'm no longer interested. Let's get out of here.
All right. Shelly Wright, the country singer, is a lesbian. She has come out. I was waiting for that.
Okay, we have a lesbian alert. I'm not familiar with her work, but that's because she's a country singer, and the only country singer I know is Johnny Cash. Because I saw Walk the Line, and I liked Joaquin Phoenix's performance. And since I'm a huge goofball, I went and bought a Johnny Cash album, Best Of. Of course, I wouldn't want to get an authentic, real album he did. And I loved it. And it turns out Johnny Cash is a huge lib. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Okay. Check out The Man in Black. It's a great song.
That drug addict would be a lib.
Right,
I'm just
of course.
kidding.
Now, the other country singers, there's actually a bunch of country singers who are huge libs. Tim McGraw.
Right. The one
Faith
that,
Hill.
the American Idol chick that had the huge glossy transformation.
Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood.
Oh, she's a lib?
Oh, I thought you meant country singer. She's a country singer.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, yes, there are a lot of country singers as well. Yes. And she does exist. But she's in Hollywood now, so I imagine she's a lib. Of course, there's a lot of conservatives, too. Hank Williams Jr., apparently clown of the world, right? And doing, stops for GOP, et cetera. Anyway, this is the lesbian one, right? I didn't know her. Is she big? Does anybody know if she's big?
Shelly Wright, no. I love how the only reason why we did this story is because she came out and said that she's a lesbian.
Yeah, of course.
We don't know who she is. We don't really care. But she said she's a lesbian, so it's big.
What are you talking about? We want to support our fellow libs.
Right.
Okay.
No, but what's sad about this story is most country lovers are conservatives. So she couldn't come out and share her true identity for such a long time. And now finally she's like, yeah, screw all that. I'm a lesbian.
And she's 39 years old. Well, of course, we applaud her courage in finally coming out. Maybe Ricky Martin's being a role model after all. But the second reason to do this story, other than the fact that some of you might know her even though we don't, is that, look at her.
Because she's hot?
Yeah, she's not just a lesbian. She's a hot lesbian. Hello, McFly. Why wouldn't we do this story? I mean, of course, there's a very important political message here, and and the message is: be yourself, don't be afraid. You do it. Oh, by the way, Melissa Etheridge is going to be all over her.
Get it?
Get it. She just broke up again,
right.
So she's going to be like, oh, how you doing?
What do you mean again? She was with her lover for years, for a long time.
I know, but she was with her other hot lover for years too. Then she broke up. She's like, how you doing? Come on, hey. See, I play a little country song for me. Now, here's another funny thing. I have no idea what kind of music Melissa Etheridge does.
Come to my window.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be home soon.
Well, please stop. Okay, JR, can you educate me? What is that? What is it? Folk? Pop? No, I don't know. I don't know. Country? I don't know. I have no idea.
How did you not know Melissa Etheridge?
It's like, it's not pop. It's like, what do they call it? Contemporary music, basically. It's like, I don't know what to really describe that as.
See, none of you know. I knew it.
But
I knew it. She doesn't know either.
I do. I know her music.
No, what I'm saying is like...
yeah, you know what a category it is?
But that's the genre. It's like adult...
Yeah, see? Yeah.
It's like adult contemporary, right?
Yeah, right. They have no idea. Okay, you email us and let us know at the
I used to love her song. Her song's really good.
Okay, and you're allowed to love her song without knowing what category it's in.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, Shelly Wright, we're with you, okay? We stand firmly behind you.
Firmly behind you, yes.
Exactly. Okay, all right. We're enough.
When we come back, we're going to make fun of Kobe Bryant. It's going to be wonderful.
Oh, yeah. JR loves this story. Okay. All right, come right back.